Ladies and gentlemen, move on very quickly to the next panel, which is the Global Lentil Outlook panel discussion. On this panel, which will be moderated by Rav Kapoor of ETG Canada, we have our panelists who include Peter Wilson from Pulse Australia. I'd like to request our panelists and moderators to please join us on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rav Kapoor of ETG Canada, your moderator. He's the CEO of the Global Pulses business of ETG. Which of course is one of the largest processing, distribution and SCM companies in the world. On the panel, the Managing Director of Wilson International Trade from Australia, Mr. Peter Wilson. He's also on the board of Pulse Australia, who brings a great deal of experience across board and management positions of one of the leading companies, many leading companies in Canada and Australia, Mr. Peter Wilson. Please also welcome Director India and Pulses Trader for AgroCorp, Mr. Sohail Tanna. Mr. Sohail Tanna looks after AgroCorp's businesses in India, leads from the front. From Mayur Global, we have Ms. Harsha Rai. She has a great deal of experience with the family and lineage in agro products processing and brokerage. And bringing up the panel, we have a gentleman who was born in Jalgaon, studied in Sydenham College, and now works and has his own operation in Dubai. Please welcome from Pulse India, Mr. Yasin Majid.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks IPGA for having me here and giving this opportunity to present some outlook on lentils. I guess half of the room is also confused, including myself, so we'll try to figure this one out. Thanks for an amazing panel, Peter, Harsha, Yasin, Sohail. The plan here is we'll just quickly run through some posted, published numbers. These numbers are either from government, respective country government websites or wherever it is not available, we have assumed some numbers. So if we are off by some numbers, please feel free to ask questions at the end if we still have time. Not to waste any time, agenda is we'll give the Canadian lentil outlook, Australian, India, Turkey, and then open up for some questions with the panelists. So wasting no time, just to give you a perspective, Canada production for the last 5 years, for the last 4 years and the coming year, as you can see that this year we had a production of about 1.8 million tons. We had a carry-in of 158,000. We have exports available for 1.6 million. What we're seeing next year is due to the current commodity prices, competing crops like oilseeds and cereals, we will see a decline of red lentil acreages, just purely because from a current price perspective, oilseeds and cereals are getting a better realization on the farm. And you throw in the Ukraine-Russia war and Europe being a big durum and wheat buyer, you're seeing that shift happen. These are large green lentils. It's mainly for southern India. This is the stock position, and we are expecting a slight increase because the prices have been a little lucrative compared to red lentils. The spread is anywhere from $300 to $400 at this point. So whenever the prices are up, you see that these commodities get more acres. So that is a good news for I think the government of India, that layered lentils will be able to substitute some of the pigeon peas which Mr. Bangar was smiling there. So we will be able to help some of the shortages. I don't think the whole shortage of tuor could be met, but that's something which I don't think I should comment on it. Medium green lentils, again, very small crop, and these are the small green lentils. So this is the total lentil situation, including all the acres for this year and coming year. This is US lentil production. So we saw a decline. Again, the reason being other competing crops were better. So we were not able to see a higher acreages, and which resulted in a different number altogether. Last year was a drought. This year was a decent year. So that's why you see the production numbers changing. This is Australia. These are the Australian lentil numbers at this point in time. These are taking in some yields which were substantial yields. I will break here for just a quick second, and if I could ask a question to Peter, and if he wants to throw some light on these numbers, that'll be highly beneficial for us and the audience. Peter.
Thanks, Rav, and good afternoon, everybody. We had a very nice lunch, and I certainly helped with some of the lentil demand with the Dal Tadka. So it's great to be here, and thanks, Yipka, for the invitation. I did ask some of my colleagues whether we wanted a bullish session or a bearish session. It was mixed. No one seemed to be able to be clear as to whether we wanted to bull it up or bear it down. But just from an Australian perspective, the numbers are the numbers, but I suspect that we have been understating Australian pulse production for some time. I suspect that'll be the case again this year. We've had some pretty good net results in terms of production, so I would say the production in the year just completed, the end of 22, and in some of the harvest was quite delayed because of the wet weather. I'd say the production is higher than what we've got stated there. They're absolutely the official government numbers, but they could be out by 10% easily, maybe more. And that's a good thing, because the Australian farmer likes growing lentils. He's largely producing the nipper type, but there's obviously some mediums and some large in there. But I suspect that we will see for the year coming, the conditions so far are reasonably good, and we'll probably see, I can't see less area sown to red lentils in Australia this year. So I think we'll have probably the same, maybe a bit bigger crop for the end of this year. Of note is that we have obviously endured 3 years of La Nina, which were very wet conditions through much of the Australian grain growing regions, and the lentil areas, particularly in Victoria, which is a state on the eastern seaboard. We certainly did suffer significant damage in terms of quality and some loss of harvested area in the last couple of months. So, if we are going to pivot into an El Nino, then we might have greater area, but probably the yields will be a bit constrained. So we need to watch those weather patterns, Rav.
Thanks, Peter. So we see that's why the acres are pretty flat, 2023. Is that a good assumption? The acres are pretty flat if you look at the forecast for next year.
Yeah, I think that the area will probably be the same or up a bit, because we're losing DESI area. The lentils are going to sneak into some of those areas in New South Wales. So I don't think we're going to lose lentil area at all, but it'll be the yield will be the determining factor.
Thanks. Moving on, India lentil production. So I guess these are published numbers from different sources, and of course authenticated by StatPub and other consultants. This year, I think the production is about 1.3 expected. I think government numbers are at 1.4. Imports in 2022, this is for 2022. So the imports were about 600,000 tons. Gross supply was available at 1.9. I guess when we do our number crunching, one of the key highlights is we don't take the losses in milling. So I guess this is definitely a very staggering, a decent number where I think we should start pricing it into the S&D. The residual stocks are super low. So I just want to hold on this slide before I move on. Turkey, I think Turkey acres have been very flat for the last 3-4 years. Production has been up and down depending on how the moisture content available or the subsoil moisture. We have seen the production maneuver from 200 to 300. At 1 year, we even saw 150,000 tons. They are a consistent importer from 400 to 500,000 tons. I think this year as well that they will be importing those kind of volumes. And I think the coming year production is still up in the air, but the predictions are that it's going to be pretty similar to last year. So the big S&D number where everyone's asking how much is left in Canada, what has Canada exported. So Canada has till December exported about 729,000 tons. And in about Jan and Feb, we expect the trade would be around close to 250,000 tons. So that takes us to about 950, 970,000 give or take. So that means Canada for the remaining part of the year till July shipment has about 500 to 600,000 tons available to still export. And if that is all going to be exported at current values, we don't think that the farmers are going to participate at current values at 500 and 600,000 tons. If the prices remain flat, we expect the farmers will going to participate maybe 200, 300,000 tons more, and they'll take more into carry, given that they are not having the same acres which were last year. These are the total about 1 million tons, including green lentils. Australia numbers are about 176, and I think 190, and I think about 200 to 300,000 is planned from now till March. So I will now move on to some questions, and I guess that will make it more interesting. We just wanted to give you some background so that these questions make more sense. So what I will like to do is I'll begin with a question to Harsha, and if she can throw some light into what are we expecting from the upcoming crop in India, which is maybe 10, 15, 20 days away. So if Harsha, please, if you can throw some light and help the audience understand what is happening in your hometown, especially Madhya Pradesh, which is the largest lentil producer. Thanks, Harsha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Harsha Rai from Mayur Global Corporation. We belong to central part of India, which is the major growing area for all kind of pulses in India. Here, we are here to talk about lentils, the lentil scenario this year in India. To begin with, seeding this year has been higher in the central part of India because of very good prices that growers have seen last year, plus 9% hike in MSP was a very good incentive for growers to go for higher seeding in red lentils. But the same we could not see in Uttar Pradesh, which is again one of the major growing area in India. Let me tell you, UP and MP together gives you 70% of lentils crop from India. The reason behind which we tried to talk to many people on the ground and try to understand that what is the reason of still flat seeding this year in UP was the unseasonal rain at the time of seeding. Plus, we have been hearing the yield issue from many years, and that is somewhere the grower has lost interest in lentils and they are more comfortable in wheat and peas. Looking at the wheat and peas price also, it was more of interest to the growers there. Bihar and West Bengal is again flat. So overall, I would say that yes, the seeding acres in India is definitely higher than last year, and that is majorly concentrating in central part of India. Now, if we talk about how was the weather at the time of seeding, I would say at the time of seeding we did see some warmer weather as compared to normal years, but the growing season was pretty well, I would say. But as we say that the rain-fed area are immensely, going through a situation where we call it climate change or weather issues. So recently we have a forecast of some strong cyclonic circulation which might result into a bit abnormally warmer temperature for next 2 to 3 weeks. So harvest in the growing areas is still, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks away, and in order to see the arrival pressure we need to wait till March first week where we could see a proper harvest and arrivals coming into central part of India, Madhya Pradesh, the mandis. There and then only we will be in a very good situation to see what kind of yields are we seeing this year. Is the late seeded crop going to get hurt by the normal heat if we see at all? So that is the only factor which tells me if there would be any change into the higher production, if we could see any kind of change into the yields prospect for coming 2 to 3 weeks. Otherwise, we would definitely see a better crop than last year. I would say, as per the Ministry of Agriculture, the seeding acres this year is like 18.59 lakh hectare compared to 17.54. But on the ground, we still feel that MP, Madhya Pradesh has higher seeded acres. We'll take it as average 15% higher, and that is how we could see some higher production this year. If we talk about carryover, this was very interesting this year, that a lot of growers, they were regularly bringing their stocks in the month of October, November, December, which was not the case last year. So this tells me that even the growers or the stockists were able to see some good crop coming, and they just maybe wanted to liquidate their old stock, and that's how we saw all those arrivals coming into the mandis, which tells me that the carryover for our desi lentils would be really low or negligible. But we do have carryover of our imported lentils at several ports in India like Calcutta, Mundra, Mumbai, Hazira, so that we still have that kind of carryover or stocks sitting at the port ready to be available for the market. That would be around, I would say, 2.5 lakh ton. So we really need to see in terms of how the weather goes for like next 2 or 3 weeks. What kind of yields do we see this year? Are the late seeded crops ready to give us a better crop, or are we going to see any kind of, even if slightly, any kind of yield issue? So that is going to give us the exact number in a month's time to see how much production we see in India this year.
Harsha really doesn't want to share the number she knows of the production.
I don't want to share.
Is it going to be like 10% higher than last year in terms of, like your guess, if you wanted to guess, it will be 10% higher in terms of the total production available?
Yes, I think last year if we see, I still agree to the number of 1.2 million metric ton the crop that we saw. So we could easily see close to 1.4, 1.45 maybe. We could really see that number coming because of the higher acreage in MP. Slightly, I mean just in MP.
Thanks, Harsha. Moving on to a very exciting market, I call this is the most exciting market I have witnessed in my career, which is the UAE market. So, Yasin bhai, if I can ask this question, how do you see the UAE stocks currently, and how do you see the consumption in the coming 3 to 4 months? And if you can predict some sort of demand coming from Horn of Africa.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. To answer the question, what Mr. Rao said, yes, definitely. First of all, UAE has been a dynamic market. It has been very volatile. It is creating an interest for the exporters as well as the importers. And it has been growing in the last few years. UAE market has been growing, and inshallah we expect that it will continue to grow. Regarding the stocks, what Mr. Rao said, UAE was very pessimistic in buying this year, and whatever we have covered or the UAE millers have covered, they have covered only up to Ramadan demand. So whatever we have in stocks or in pipeline will be for the Ramadan demand, which will be taken care of very well. Post Ramadan, there is again two factors: the Indian crop scenario, which was expected. We have to see the substandard qualities coming from Australia, which will pull down the prices, and then again, what is the total overall leftovers, means seeding positions coming from Canada. So all these factors will decide the new strategy for the coming months after March, like April onwards. So that is how we will wait, and there is not much of unsold quantities available in UAE so far. We can expect an unexpected demand coming from the neighboring countries, which are facing problems to honor their commitments. We have seen some defaults or some diversions from Pakistan. We have seen some defaults, diversions from other parts. Egypt is facing current USD problems. Sri Lanka definitely was facing some problems. Now Pakistan is in the crisis. They don't have dollars to pay their import bills. Bangladesh is having currency problems. So all these things, whenever you see certain markets are empty, and for their immediate requirement, they turn their faces towards Dubai or to the UAE market. So that can bring in some exports to these markets. Going to the Horn of Africa again, it will be like pre-Ramadan demand and post-Ramadan demand. Historically, we have seen that post-Ramadan demand subsides, people they just try to carry on or to cover to play with whatever the stocks are left over after Ramadan. So things will take a month or two to settle, and then we can decide the new strategy on this.
Oh, just a follow-up question, Yasin, on that. We have seen UAE being a consistent importer of Canadian and Australian lentils for the last 3-4 years, and the volumes have been either the same or creeps up. So given last year the global prices of lentils were high because of the drought situation in Canada and prices coming down, do you see an impact of that demand of quantities for the coming year, given that the prices have come down close to 30% from the highs?
Yes, Rao, there is definitely, this will help the prices when they come down, and when if it is going to some regions like Africa, they definitely will be buying more. Plus, not only the prices of the product, but the export freights have gone down drastically. So which is also helping us to move more quantities into those markets, and which will continue, which will help us to continue this trade. Unlike India, they don't have a substitute for, like, they will substitute lentils for tuor or for other products. They eat lentils because they want to eat lentils. It's not a substitute. So we cannot see that substitution demand, but yes, because of the synergy of price and demand, yes, because of the price going down, demand may increase.
Thank you. Moving to Sohail, I have a question which I think is the toughest question of this panel, which is to Sohail, if you can please, with your experience and the depth of knowledge of the Indian consumption market, how do you see India consumption in the next 12 months of lentils, given that the prices have come off quite a bit? And the second, the big white elephant in the room is, if there is some sort of higher prices which we are already witnessing in tuor, would that have overspill demand coming to lentils from Horeca or from government supplies? So if you can throw some light on consumption last year, and how do you see consumption going forward?
Good afternoon all. Thank you, Mr. Rao. Looking at the tuor prices, which are trading above 900 levels, the lentil prices are the cheapest prices at the moment, which is almost trading $300 lower than the tuor prices. So I see the demand moving it to the lentils more rather than the tuor. It's sort of a substitute, and also the price factor will be much more rather than it. The Ramadan demand will also be there, though the supplies are there, but the demand will be throughout the year in the lentils, no doubt about it, irrespective of supplies. And also the tuor dal supply tenders may be replaced by lentils tender. This will be a great help for the lentils. And even the lentils prices at the ports are trading much below the MSPs. So we don't see any further downfall in the lentils prices, and these are the safest price for the ownership at the moment.
So just a follow-up question, Sohail, if the demand was, let's say, 2 million tons to 2.1 million tons, as we have seen from government figures, if you take the production and imports in a year, it accounts to close to 1.9 to 2 million tons. So do you think that 2 million could become 2.3 million, 2.4 million because the prices are low and there is a shortage of a crop which could be substituted?
Yes, the possibility is very high.
So if you put that together, last year India did 600,000 tons of imports. And if we have to replace 300,000-400,000 tons, could India import close to 1 million tons like it did 2 years back?
Possibly we are seeing that the India might import around 850,000 tons.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now moving on to one of the other big factors which we don't take into consideration and which is happening at an alarming rate. And this question is for Peter, and maybe if he could start, and if anyone wants to add their 2 cents. We're seeing our consumption markets, other than India, our neighboring countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, countries which are really struggling with the US dollars, right? And the world trade is still dollar denominated. So Peter, what are you seeing in the market where people need the product, but they're unable to pay for it. So is it having an impact, especially where Australia is a big supplier to Bangladesh?
Yeah, I guess we don't see it right at farm level because it's further down the supply chain, but it's absolutely creating significant problems, and it creates issues with confidence in putting business on the books. If you can't subsequently then get an LC out of places like Bangladesh, then you can't ship the product. And then to have product going into places like Pakistan and then having containers stuck on the docks, it creates enormous problems to solve. So I guess we're very fortunate that India is showing, a great level of demand for red lentils at the present time, because those other markets are certainly struggling, and Egypt, in case in point. And I think it goes to that sort of macroeconomic problems that we've had coming out of COVID. We've got some really big financial hits that have been taken around the world, and in some of the countries that can least afford it. And you're right, they need food, but there isn't the hard currency to pay for that food. So, I think the IMF and the World Bank are going to have to work with some of these sovereign nations to come up with structures to allow liquidity to occur. Otherwise, we will literally have people struggling to have access. And I think Chandrasekhar said it best, it's about availability. If you can't pay the bills, then the product's not going to be available in the market. So it's of grave concern. The structure of these markets and the availability of hard currency in these markets is of big concern.
Thanks, Peter. Just a follow-up on that, right? So when you see that dollar is not available and private enterprise is not able to import due to central bank dollar reserves not being there, so do you see a lot of food aid demand coming in the future to replace this private demand in these countries? Like, what do you think from your vast experience could happen?
I think if we're waiting for food aid, people will be dead before the food aid arrives. So, governments tend to be really unable to meet those they don't move fast enough to meet the need. What they've got to try and do is allow for liquidity to occur, and I'm sure that these things are happening in places like Islamabad and Dhaka, where they're talking to the IMF and the World Bank to try and free up capital. And in places like Sri Lanka, obviously we've seen issues, and of course Egypt. But these are big, deep structural financial problems that the world is, I don't think really the world fully appreciates the depth of issues. I mean, Bangladesh, they won't tell you there's a hard currency problem, but you can't get an LC up for a lot of key commodities because the banks won't allow the LC to be placed, and you need a greater deposit now, if you're a customer, for that bank to raise an LC. So it's a big problem. It's here and now.
Thanks, Peter. Harsha, back to you. I know it's the white elephant in the room, and nobody knows this answer, but just wanted to pick your brain. If the price of lentils hover below MSP, given that you have been involved at different levels of the supply chain, do you see there is a risk of government intervening with some sort of a tariff again to stabilize the market and bring MSP, or do you feel that it's too early to make a decision on that?
See, with the new crop coming and a better production, we have already seen that kind of price reduction into the prices. I mean, this information is already discounted in the price at this point of time, looking at what kind of levels the imported lentils trading at several ports, plus the arrivals in mandis, which are not huge right now, but still under the MSP in few mandis. So what I think is, when the government might start buying in March at MSP, we won't be able to see these prices again. This is what I think. Government has raised MSP the highest this year, and that is for lentils 9%. So I don't think government would let grower let their MSP be not workable. So I think the government definitely will buy, and the prices which are trading below MSP at this point of time be imported or the arrivals of our own lentils should move higher. When we talk about duty, the duty is only a concern when the local prices are trading way below the MSP. That is the main concern for the government, which I think will not be the scene, because Rao, we need to notice one thing, that the Desi arrivals have been very negligible. As I said, the carryover is not there. So those manufacturers in several parts of India, they want Desi lentils in their plant, are eagerly waiting to buy. So we really need to see that, is grower going to sell below MSP, or they are going to hold on in March? Is all those manufacturers who are waiting for Desi lentils to arrive, will they be able to buy at price lower than MSP? Which I think could be seen for few days until the government start buying, or maybe few growers who do not want to hold it for long. But I see market coming back to MSP, and that is why I don't see that kind of duty coming back until and unless the prices are trading way below MSP, like 9 to 10%. Otherwise, we will see market going very well in coming months. In terms of demand, as you said, the consumption and the demand for tuar, I think last 2 years when we saw the higher prices for lentils, there was definitely demand destruction for the processed lentils in India. We could see in the local market, a lot of manufacturers who were running red lentils into their plant, they shifted to some other commodities, maybe mung beans or whatever they could. But with these prices coming back to these levels, 55 to 60, or let's say MSP 6,000, I think this is a wonderful price for those millers to get back to the lentils business. There would be very good demand. There would be normal demand which will be coming back at these levels, along with the substitution of tuar that we were discussing that could happen this year. So at these levels, as I said, even when the acreage is higher, so would be the demand as compared to last year in terms of Desi arrivals, which a lot of manufacturers will still be waiting to look for.
Thanks, Harsha. Lentils, the savior. Lentils is going to save the consumer. Moving on to one last question before I open for some price range expectation and audience questions. Yasin bhai, we have seen in the last 2 years due to COVID, a lot of container supply was taken off from the market, and a lot of trade had to move to bulk vessels. And reason it had to move because the spread between vessels and containers was quite significant. Now with I think in the last 3 months, we've seen container rates, at least out of North America, and I think Australia is following, but at a slower pace, have pretty much plateaued or very close to vessel prices. So if that competition starts, do you see a shift happening from millers, including UAE and Egypt or some other places, just to understand how a miller thinks? Do you see that shift happening to containers at all? And if that happens, will we see more containerized business compared to last 2 years?
Rao, regarding this, yes, UAE were never prepared and never imported in bulk. Now we all have geared up our capacities. We have made the infrastructure to handle bulk vessels. So definitely we will not give it back. We will continue to import in bulk vessel as far as it is more competitive and comfortable for us. But definitely with the slowdown in the prices, when the market is uncertain, people will shift to container business. So it will be a mix and match. You cannot say which permutation combination. But yes, we definitely will take the advantage of lower container freights. And this is regarding the UAE. When you talk about other markets like Egypt and all, it again depends on what is their availability on currency, because that is a big factor. If they have sufficient amount to finance a bulk vessel, they will definitely take headache for once, rather than taking into small pieces. But if they have small parcels of government releasing the dollars, then they will shift definitely to container business. So all this for the other regions, it's very unclear now. But for Dubai, yes, we will continue with the bulk vessels.
Thank you. Just on a follow-up on that, so, with the cost of fund, pretty much today, cost of funds are tripling in value, right? And when you bring in a vessel, is the whole time longer than funding containers? So does that have any effect on the decision-making of a miller, or you don't think that is something to really give too much weightage?
Not for the UAE millers. Not for the major UAE millers, it doesn't make a difference on that sense. But for the small millers, they will again come back into the market. So which will affect the overall structure of the market. That will definitely affect, because now small players are out, they cannot import in bulk vessels, and that's why the big players are taking their shares. So when the container business will again be more competitive, they will definitely come back in the market, and it can affect the market, yes.
Thank you. Time's up. Can I take 5 minutes or no? Any questions from the audience?
Hello. We are now coming back to the scenario where you told the MSP is 60 rupees. We see elections in Madhya Pradesh, and the Chief Minister will be really worried and should buy the lentils at MSP. So they are right now around 10% down, and they should support it because we have elections ahead. My question is to Peter. Peter, we have seen some rains during the harvest in Australia. How do you see the parcels coming in India? What will be the variations in quality, and how much, and when we do expect that? Because we have not seen really bad quality lentils yet coming in India.
Well, of course, you'll only ever see the best quality in the world coming from Australia. I mean, don't worry about the rubbish from Canada. Australia is always going to have the best quality available. As I said, the crop is probably larger than the official figures are published. The product that was really badly damaged will probably not be seen outside of, they'll probably be used to feed sheep in places like the Mallee in Victoria. And there may well be some judicious blending on farm to meet specification. But so far, we are seeing, the quality holding up okay. And of course, South Australia and a reasonable chunk of Victoria is still produced beautiful #1 lentils. So there's an area that there was no real impact at all from the heavy rainfall, and then there is a compartmentalised area in northern Victoria that certainly saw most of the pain. So it wasn't widespread, but where it did impact, it impacted badly, but it wasn't a massive area, if that makes sense. And there's, yields have indeed compensated for all of those losses. So I don't think it'll make much difference to what we said would be available for export, because I think the crop is a bit bigger. You take away the stuff that just won't be seen in the market, and you'll still have plenty available for export. That will be better than the Canadian product, of course.
You mean to say we should not be worried about few containers or a ship with some kind of blends coming in? We have a quality issue here. I mean, few people do it.
Well, I think that it's got to meet specifications. So there'll be no doubt there'll be some people who will be able to deal with a #2 or an extra 2 type quality lentil because of the way their mill runs or whether the pricing structure and all those sorts of things. So the product will get consumed. It'll make its way into the market for sure. It just may not make it into a market that's looking for a whole red lentil, for example. They may not want it, but from a milling perspective, some of those qualities are certainly going to be consumed.
One more question. Anyone? You had a question. No?
By the time, can I ask a question to Mr. Rao regarding the...
One second. Let him ask, and then you can ask.
Can we?
Yeah. You see, we saw 2 different numbers for the imports into India expected this year. One is 600,000 and Sohail was expecting 800,000. So, this is going to really make...
Bangarji, the 600 was last year, so he's saying 600 was last year. This year he expects to be 850,000.
Okay, so 800,000 tons. Now, you said that the pigeon peas, if the price goes up, that will shift to the lentils also this year. So do you think it's going to make difference of 200,000 to 300,000 tons more, and they may import more than 1 million ton?
Who? India?
India.
This question is to Sohail.
Both of them, Sohail or Arsha, either of these two.
I definitely think there would be substitution in terms of the prices. As I said, the normal demand plus the substitution for lentils will happen this year at these prices. And if you talk about if higher imports in terms of substitution, I would say maybe around 1.5 to 2 lakh ton we can see more of red lentils coming. Because if you notice, last year we did had imports, but the price trend was telling us that, you know, those imports were dragging the prices down. Because as I mentioned, many millers were not active and there was not that kind of demand which we call the actual demand for processed lentils was seen. That is why from last February till date, we always saw the prices going towards south, not north. So this year, definitely from here, I don't see any need of prices going down lower. But yes, how much higher we really need to see, and definitely we'll see around maybe 1.5, 2 lakh ton of lentils coming more in terms of the substitution if pigeon peas prices move dramatically high and they are not moving in a controlled way. And if we don't see, right now we are expecting arrivals from Africa, right? But the seeding has to be done, the harvest has to be done, so we are not sure what kind of African numbers are we going to see for pigeon peas this year. We are expecting El Nino. We don't know how much right it is. We will only know in April. So we don't know the production here for any origin after, you know, few months. We are still guessing the numbers at this point of time. Right, Rao?
Yes. Bangarji, we will make sure that we maintain equilibrium and we control pigeon pea prices through oversupplying of lentils. Me and Peter are assuring you that Canada and Australia won't leave any stone unturned to control pigeon
But Harsha said that there is going to be a higher production and higher the yield. If the yield is good because the acreage is high, so that also again very nice combination. We would love to see higher production in India and higher imports.
The imports number, as we said, we imported 600,000 tons, right? But where did we see the prices going down? If that was the actual demand, then why were the prices going down? We need to calculate, we need to understand the mathematics here, which we can discuss later on. So 800 or 600 only after we know the actual yields in India after a month, I would say.
Rightly said.
Hope that is right.
Yasin bhai, you had a question.
I just wanted to check about the seeding for the new crop 23 in Canada. Can you throw the light on that, what you're expecting?
As I mentioned in my presentation, like we have to understand that there are a lot of things happening geopolitically which are driving consumption and demand into different regions, right? So we Canadian farmers got very good prices for its cereals, for durum, for canola, like they had an amazing year. Now, I don't want to add any fuel to the fire here, but we have generally seen that when you have higher super commodity cycles, in the last 3 times I have witnessed it, 2009, in 2013-14, and now we are in that super commodity cycle again. We generally see that when there are higher cereal prices and higher prices for oil seeds, what ends up happening is you see increase in acres of those commodities. So when those increase of acres happen because the realization is better, it has to come from the same supply of land. And pulses prices are always the lagger when it goes to so the following year you will see the pulses acres coming down, and this is happening. We were at the crop production show and we really expect that the Canadian farmer at current levels is not going to seed the same acres as last year.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to us. You have been a very calm audience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Ladies and big round of applause for this wonderful planning. Thank you, Mr. Rao Kapoor, for such a wonderful moderation. May I request you please present your panelists with mementos on behalf of the organizers, starting with the gentleman right next to you, Mr. Peter Wilson. Can we have the mementos, please? Next to Mr. Wilson, we have Harsha Rai of Mayur Global. Mr. Yasin Majid, Pulse India Dubai. And Sohail of Agrocorp. May I request Mr. Pradeep Jindal to please step up on stage and present a memento to our moderator, Mr. Rao Kapoor. Mr. Jindal is a senior member of the IPGA from North India.